7:14 p.m. The exact moment my life split into before and after. The text from Amelia was brief. Working late. Don't wait up. I read it once. Twice. 3 times. Each time, the words felt heavier. More wrong. Like a lie that forgot to cover its tracks. I sat in our kitchen, the one we'd renovated together, back when I still believed in us, and felt something cold settle in my chest. My father once told me I had killer instincts. Coming from a man who'd abandoned me emotionally my entire life, I'd never put much stock in his words. But right then, I felt them. Those instincts. Sharp and certain. We'd been married for 6 years. Together for 9. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew everything about her. Every fear, every dream, every little habit that made her who she was. But lately, she'd become a stranger. A beautiful stranger who lived in my house, slept in my bed, wore my ring, and looked through me like I was already gone. I loved her. God, I still loved her. But love doesn't make you blind. It just makes you hope you're wrong. And I wasn't wrong. My father, Stephen Archibald Michaelson, was one of the wealthiest men in the country. Billionaire. Real estate mogul. Power broker. The kind of man whose name opened doors and closed deals with a single phone call. But to me, he was just the man who was never home. The man who missed every birthday, every graduation, every moment that actually mattered. When I was 23, he cut me off. Said I needed to learn what it meant to earn something. Said his money had made me soft. So I left. Built my own life from scratch. Started a tech consulting firm with nothing but a laptop and 70-hour work weeks. Lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture and water-stained ceilings. Proved I didn't need him. And then I met Amelia. She was working at a non-profit downtown, organizing charity events for underprivileged kids. She had this energy about her. This warmth. She didn't care that I drove a beat-up Honda or that my apartment smelled like old coffee and ambition. She said she loved me for me. We got married 3 years later. Small ceremony. Just us and a handful of friends. My father didn't come. Didn't even send a card. I told myself I didn't care. Told Amelia the same thing. She held my hand and said, "You're enough for me. You've always been enough." I believed her. But about a year ago, something changed. It started small. She began dressing differently. Expensive clothes I knew we couldn't afford. Designer handbags. Shoes that cost more than our rent. When I asked, she said they were gifts from work. Said a donor at her nonprofit had taken a liking to her. I didn't push. I trusted her. Then came the late nights. The work dinners. The weekends, she suddenly had to travel for conferences. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped laughing at my jokes. Stopped looking at me the way she used to, like I was the only man in the room. I found a receipt once, tucked into her purse. A restaurant I'd never heard of. The bill was over $2,000. When I asked about it, she barely looked up from her phone. Work event, she said. You know how donors are. They like to be wined and dined. But her name wasn't on the corporate card. The name on that receipt belonged to someone else. A name I didn't recognize. Not then. I started noticing other things. New jewelry. A platinum bracelet that appeared one morning. A diamond necklace that caught the light when she turned her head. When I asked, she smiled and said they were bonuses. That her organization appreciated her hard work. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But the worst part, the part that should have made me wake up, was how she started mentioning my father. Casually. Too casually. I ran into Stephen at a gala last month. He asked about you. Your father donated to our organization. He's actually very generous. Stephen invited me to lunch to discuss a partnership. I hope that's okay. I told her it was fine. Told her my father and I didn't have a relationship anymore, so it didn't matter what he did. But it did matter. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. Because something in her voice changed when she said his name. Something soft. Something I hadn't heard in months when she said mine. That evening, as I sat staring at her text, working late. Don't wait up. Another notification came through. An email. No name. No subject line. Just 2 pieces of information. St. Catherine's Cathedral, 8 p.m. Most people would have ignored it, called it spam, deleted it, and moved on with their evening. I'm not most people. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever I was about to see would require me to become someone new, someone harder, someone who didn't forgive. In less than an hour, Klaus would witness a betrayal so profound it would transform him from a trusting husband into something far more dangerous. And the people who betrayed him? They'd learned too late that some men don't break. They burn everything down instead. Fasten your seatbelt, besties. The ride is about to get even more interesting. Smash that subscribe button, hit like, and share this story to support the channel. Let me know where you're watching from. You matter to me, and I appreciate your being here. I drove to St. Catherine's Cathedral in silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Maybe it was a surprise party. Maybe Amelia had planned something for our anniversary, and this anonymous email was part of some elaborate setup. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe years of being abandoned by my father had made me see betrayal in every shadow. But my gut told me otherwise. And my father, whatever else he was, had been right about one thing. I had killer instincts. The cathedral loomed ahead, its Gothic spires cutting into the darkening sky like broken promises. Stained glass windows glowed from within, warm and inviting. Music drifted out into the cold November air. Something classical, something beautiful, something wrong. I parked across the street and sat there for a moment, my heart hammering against my ribs. Part of me wanted to turn around, drive home, pretend I'd never gotten that email, pretend everything was fine. But I'd been pretending for months, and I was done. I got out of the car and walked toward those heavy wooden doors, pushed them open, slipped inside. The cathedral was breathtaking. Rows of polished pews, candlelight flickering against stone walls, the scent of roses and incense thick in the air. And at the far end of the aisle, beneath an ornate arch draped in white flowers, I saw them. Amelia, in a wedding dress. Not the simple one she'd worn when she married me. That dress had been off-white, knee-length, bought on sale at a bridal shop we could barely afford. This one was extravagant. Pure white lace and silk that shimmered in the candlelight. A train that stretched down the aisle like a river of ivory. Her hair was pinned up with flowers, real flowers, white roses, the kind that cost hundreds of dollars each. And standing beside her, in a tailored Tom Ford tuxedo that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, was my father, Stephen Klaus Michaelson. His silver hair was slicked back perfectly. His hand was holding hers, her left hand, where my wedding ring used to be. His eyes were locked on her face like she was the only person in the world, like she was the most precious thing he'd ever possessed. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it. Some cruel hallucination brought on by stress or paranoia or a complete mental breakdown. But no, it was real. They were really there, surrounded by flowers and candles and soft music. Guests sat in the pews, 50, maybe 60 people, all dressed in formal attire, all watching with smiles on their faces. I saw her in that dress. She looked radiant, happy, calm, like this was the best day of her life. And my father, my own father, looked at her the way I'd always wanted him to look at me, with pride, with possession, with something that might have been love if he were capable of it. Nobody noticed me. I'd slipped into the back row, into the shadows near the side door. I stayed frozen there, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the priest speak. The words washed over me in waves I couldn't process. Dearly beloved, to have and to hold. In sickness and in health. I thought I would scream. I thought I would rush down that aisle and tear them apart with my bare hands. Demand answers. Demand an explanation for how my wife, was standing at an altar marrying my father. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and pressed record. My hands shook, but I forced them steady. I zoomed in. I filmed his face, calm, satisfied, victorious. I filmed her holding his hand, her fingers intertwined with his like they belonged there. I filmed the moment the priest said, "You may kiss the bride." I filmed my father, my own father, kissing my wife. Not a polite kiss. Not a ceremonial peck. A real kiss. Deep and possessive and final. A kiss that said, "She's mine now. She was always mine." The guests applauded. I recognized some of them through the camera lens. Business partners from my father's empire. Society elites who'd never given me the time of day. People from his world. The world I'd walked away from. The world I'd sworn I'd never need. They all knew who I was. They had to. And they didn't care. I didn't crash the wedding. I didn't yell or throw a scene or make myself known. I just recorded everything. Every second. Every smile. Every moment of their perfect, secret ceremony. I knew, standing there in the shadows with my phone in my hand, that this moment would change my life forever. That I couldn't go back to the way things were. That the man who walked into this cathedral wasn't the same man who would walk out. But I also knew something else. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. I didn't know why they did it. Not yet. I didn't know how long they'd been planning it, or what I'd done to deserve this level of betrayal, or what they hoped to gain by destroying me so completely. But I would find out. And I would make damn sure they remembered this day just as clearly as I always would. I slipped out the side door before the ceremony ended. Before they turned to walk down the aisle as husband and wife. Before anyone could see the look on my face and realize that someone had witnessed their secret. Outside, the cold November air hit me like a slap. I leaned against the cathedral's stone wall and just breathed. In and out. In and out. Forcing oxygen into my lungs because my body had forgotten how. My phone was still in my hand. Still recording. I stopped the video. Saved the file. And stared at the thumbnail. My father's hand holding Amelia's. Both of them smiling like they'd won something. They probably thought they had. They were wrong. I got into my car. Started the engine. And sat there for a long moment. Watching the cathedral's glowing windows in my rearview mirror. A part of me wanted to cry. To scream. To drive my car off a bridge and end the pain before it consumed me completely. But a different part. A part one didn't know existed until that moment. Felt something else entirely. Clarity. Cold, brutal clarity. They'd taken everything from me. My wife. My father's respect. What little of it might have existed. My sense of reality. My ability to trust. They'd stripped me down to nothing and left me standing in the wreckage of my own life. Fine. Let them have their victory. Let them celebrate their perfect secret wedding. Let them believe they'd won. Because I was about to show them what happens when you betray the wrong man. I pulled out of the parking space and drove home. Not to fall apart. Not to grieve. But to start planning. This story wasn't over. It was just beginning. But before I tell you how I destroyed them, and I did destroy them, completely, and without mercy, you need to understand how we got here. You need to know who I was before that text message arrived. Who my father was. Who Amelia pretended to be. You need to understand the whole story. So let me take you back to the beginning. To a time when I still believed in love and family and the idea that good things happen to good people. Let me tell you about Klaus Michaelson, the man I used to be before 7:14 p.m. on that November evening. The man who died in that cathedral. And the man who was born in his place. My name is Klaus Michaelson. And before I show you how I burned their world to the ground, you need to understand who I was. Who they were. And how a boy who grew up with everything ended up with nothing, twice. I was born into wealth I never asked for. My father, Stephen Archibald Michaelson, built an empire from dirt and determination. Real estate, hotels, commercial developments that reshaped city skylines. By the time I was born, his name alone was worth more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. But money doesn't buy presents. It doesn't buy love. And it sure as hell doesn't buy a father who shows up. My childhood memories of Stephen are fragments. A man in expensive suits walking past my bedroom. The sound of his car leaving before I woke up for school. Birthday cards signed by his assistant. Christmas presents wrapped by staff members who knew me better than he did. My mother tried to fill the void. She was warm where he was cold, present where he was absent, but even she couldn't hide the truth that I was an obligation to him, not a son. An heir to manage, not a child to love. She died when I was 15. Brain aneurysm. Gone in an instant. Stephen didn't cry at her funeral. Didn't speak. Just stood there in his black Tom Ford suit, the same one he'd wear years later to marry my wife, and stared at her casket like it was a business deal gone wrong. I cried enough for both of us. After that, it was just the two of us in a mansion that felt more like a mausoleum. He worked. I studied. We passed each other in hallways like strangers. And when I turned 18 and told him I wanted to study computer science instead of business, he looked at me like I'd personally insulted him. "You're a Michaelson," he said. "You don't code. You build empires." I went to MIT anyway. He paid for it, but he never called, never visited, never once asked how I was doing. And when I graduated with honors, top of my class, I waited for him in the crowd, searched for his face among the parents taking photos and cheering. He didn't come. That's when I understood. I wasn't his son. I was a line item on a balance sheet, an investment that needed to prove its worth. So I did. I came home with my degree and a plan. I'd work for him, learn the business, prove I was worthy of the Michaelson name. Maybe then he'd see me. Maybe then I'd be enough. I worked for him for 2 years. 80-hour weeks. Did everything he asked and more. Analyzed properties. Negotiated deals. Made him millions he didn't need. He never said thank you. Never acknowledged my work except to point out what I'd done wrong. And then, on my 23rd birthday, he called me into his office. "You're soft," he said. No preamble. No happy birthday. Just that. "My money has made you weak. You've never had to fight for anything. Never had to earn anything. I've been working for you for 2 years," I said. "Working for me isn't the same as working for yourself." He leaned back in his leather chair, his fingers steepled like he was delivering a sermon. "Consider this a gift. I'm cutting you off. No more trust fund. No more safety net. Go build something on your own. Come back when you're a man." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to smile and say it was a test. He didn't smile. "You have 30 days to move out of the penthouse," he said. "After that, you're on your own." I left his office, left the building, left that entire world behind, and I swore I'd never need him again. I took what little money I'd saved and rented a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where sirens sang you to sleep. Got a used Honda from a repo lot. Lived on instant ramen and cheap coffee. Started a tech consulting firm with nothing but my laptop and a list of contacts who remembered me from MIT. It was brutal. I worked 70-hour weeks. Slept 4 hours a night. Lost weight I didn't have to lose. But slowly, painfully, I built something that was mine. Clients came. Revenue grew. I wasn't rich, not like my father, but I was surviving. I was proving him wrong. That's when I met Amelia. It was at a charity event downtown. One of those rubber chicken dinners where wealthy people write checks to feel good about themselves. I wasn't wealthy anymore, but I'd been invited by a client who thought I should network. She was working the event, not as a guest, as staff. She wore a simple black dress and carried a clipboard, directing donors to their tables and smiling like she actually cared about what they were saying. I watched her handle a particularly difficult guest, some hedge fund manager who was complaining about his table placement, with grace and humor. When she walked past me, I stopped her. "You're really good at that," I said. She looked at me, surprised. "At what?" "Making terrible people feel important." She laughed. A real laugh. Not the polite titter everyone else in that room used. "It's a gift. And a curse." We talked. Not about money or business or any of the things people usually talked about at these events. About books, music, the fact that we both thought the chicken was overcooked. I asked for her number. She gave it to me. 3 months later, we were dating. 6 months after that, I was in love. Amelia was everything I didn't know I needed. She didn't care that I drove a beat-up car or lived in a cramped apartment. She didn't care that my father and I didn't speak. She loved me for me, the man I'd become without money, without a safety net, without anyone's help but my own. Or so I thought. We got married 3 years after we met. Small ceremony at a courthouse, followed by dinner at a restaurant we could barely afford. My father didn't come. I didn't invite him. Amelia held my hand and said, "This is perfect. Just us. That's all we need." I believed her. We built a life together. Modest. Happy. Real. I grew my business. She worked at her nonprofit, organizing events for underprivileged kids. We bought a small house, renovated the kitchen together, talked about having kids someday. For 6 years, I thought I'd won. I'd proven my father wrong. I'd built something meaningful without him. I had a woman who loved me, a life that was mine. I was happy. And then, about a year ago, everything started to shift. She came home with a new purse. Expensive. Designer. When I asked about it, she smiled and said a donor had given it to her as a thank you gift. "They're not supposed to do that," I said. "I know." But he insisted, said I'd worked so hard on the gala. She kissed my cheek. "Don't worry. It's nothing." It wasn't nothing. The gifts kept coming. Clothes. Jewelry. Shoes that cost more than our mortgage payment. She always had an explanation. Always a donor. Always work-related. And then the late nights started. Working late became her most used phrase. Donor dinners. Board meetings. Conference calls that ran until midnight. I wanted to be supportive. She worked hard. She was passionate about her job. But she stopped asking about my day. Stopped laughing at my jokes. Stopped looking at me the way she used to. Like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I found the receipt by accident. $2,000 at a restaurant I'd never heard of. When I asked her about it, she barely glanced at it. "Donor dinner," she said. "You know how it is." But the name on the corporate card wasn't hers. It wasn't even from her nonprofit. It was from one of my father's holding companies. That's when the pieces started to fit together. The mentions of Stephen at galas. The lunch meetings to discuss partnerships. The way her eyes lit up when she said his name. A light that had dimmed when she said mine. I told myself I was being paranoid. That my abandonment issues were making me see things that weren't there. I was wrong. And on November 14th, at 7:14 p.m., when that text came through, "Working late. Don't wait up," followed by an anonymous email with an address and a time, I stopped lying to myself. I got in my car. I drove to St. Catherine's Cathedral, and I walked through those doors knowing, on some level, I didn't want to acknowledge exactly what I was going to find. But knowing and seeing are two different things. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing my wife, standing at an altar in a wedding dress that cost more than everything we owned, holding hands with my father while a priest pronounced them husband and wife. Nothing could have prepared me for the way they looked at each other. Like they'd won something. Like I'd never existed at all. I stood in those shadows. I recorded everything. And I felt something inside me die. The boy who'd spent his whole life trying to earn his father's love. The man who'd believed love was enough to build a life on. They both died in that cathedral. And someone new was born. Someone who understood that love was a weapon. That trust was a liability. That the only person you could count on was yourself. Someone who would make them pay. But first, I had to understand why. Why would my father do this? Why would Amelia? What did they gain from destroying me so completely? I didn't know yet. But I was about to find out. And when I did, the betrayal would cut so deep, I'd almost wish I'd never asked. Klaus thought the wedding was the worst of it. He was wrong. Because hidden in Amelia's past, and his father's present, was a conspiracy so calculated, so cold, that it would make their secret marriage look like mercy. And when Klaus finally uncovered the truth, he'd realize they didn't just betray him. They'd been hunting him from the very beginning. I didn't go back to the cathedral. Didn't wait to see them walk down the aisle as husband and wife. Didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing I'd witnessed their perfect little ceremony. I got in my car and drove home in silence. The city lights blurred past my windows. Other cars honked. Life continued around me like nothing had changed. Like my entire world hadn't just imploded inside a Gothic cathedral on a cold November night. Amelia's text was still on my phone. Working late. Don't wait up. I pulled into our driveway. Though I suppose it was just mine now, and sat there for a moment. The house looked exactly the same. Same porch light we'd installed together. Same welcome mat she'd picked out. Same life we'd built, now revealed as nothing but a carefully constructed lie. I should have been crying. Should have been screaming. Should have been pouring gasoline on everything we owned and lighting a match. But I wasn't. Something inside me had shifted. Not broken, transformed. The Klaus who'd driven to that cathedral was dead. The man who returned was someone different. Someone colder. Someone who understood that emotion was a luxury he couldn't afford. I walked inside, made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at our kitchen table, the one we'd refinished together on a sunny Saturday last spring, and opened my laptop. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to be methodical. Amelia never logged out of anything. It was a habit I'd found endearing once. She trusted me, trusted our life together, trusted that I'd never invade her privacy. That trust died tonight. I started with her email. Most of it was mundane. Nonprofit correspondence, donor thank you notes, meeting confirmations. But then I found the folder. It wasn't labeled, just a string of random characters meant to look like spam. Inside were dozens of emails I'd never seen. Hotel confirmations. The Ritz-Carlton. For seasons. Places we'd never been together because we couldn't afford them. But someone could. Someone had booked suites. Presidential suites. For Mr. and Mrs. Michaelson. Not me. Him. Restaurant reservations. Places I'd only heard of. Lou Bernardine. 11 Madison Park. Per se. Invoices for dinners that cost more than our monthly mortgage. Wine lists that read like car payments. I took screenshots of everything. Saved them to a folder on my desktop. Then copied that folder to a flash drive. Then uploaded it to a cloud account I created with a fake name. Nothing was getting lost. Next, I checked her text messages. She'd been careful. Deleted most of them. But not all. Some conversations remained, saved under initials. SM Stephen Michaelson. I scrolled through months of messages. Dinner was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. Klaus asked about the bracelet. I told him it was from work. When can I see you again? He doesn't suspect anything. He's so focused on his little business. His little business. The one I'd built from nothing while she was falling in love with my father's empire. The messages went back over a year. Long, detailed conversations. Plans for secret meetings. Hotels they'd visit. Excuses she'd use. Ways to keep me blind. And emojis. Her emojis. The same heart and kiss symbols she used to send me. Now sent to him. I recognized her typing style. The way she said LOL when something wasn't funny. The way she used 3 dots when she was being coy. All of it familiar. All of it poison. I took screenshots. Saved everything. Moved to the next piece of evidence. Our phone records. I logged into our account online. Pulled up the last 6 months of call logs. Her number had regular calls with one specific number I didn't recognize. Late at night. Sometimes after midnight. Calls that lasted an hour or more. I cross-referenced the number with my father's known contacts. It took me 20 minutes, but I found it. His private line. The one he gave to his inner circle. The one he'd never given me. I documented every call. Date. Time. Duration. Built a spreadsheet that painted a picture clearer than any confession. Then I went hunting on social media. Amelia's main Instagram was public. Photos of us. Our house. Her nonprofit events. The perfect life she wanted everyone to see. But I knew she had a second account. She'd mentioned it once, casually, saying she kept one private for close friends only. I'd never asked to follow it. Never thought I needed to. I searched variations of her name. Found it on the 3rd try. The account was private, but the profile picture wasn't. It showed 2 people at a beach. Not a group photo. Just 2. Amelia and my father. I recognized that beach. We were supposed to go there for our anniversary last year. I'd booked the trip. Spent months saving for it. Then my father called with a business emergency and said he needed my consulting on a deal. Said it was urgent. Would pay triple my usual rate. I'd canceled our trip. Told Amelia I was sorry. Promised we'd go next year. She'd smiled and said, "It's okay. I understand. Maybe I'll do a girls' weekend instead." There was no girls' weekend. She went to that beach with him. Wore a bikini I'd never seen. Smiled at the camera like she'd won something. I took a screenshot. Added it to my growing file. But I needed more. I needed irrefutable proof. I needed the kind of evidence that couldn't be explained away or gaslit or dismissed. That's when I found the phone. It was 3 a.m. Amelia still wasn't home. Still at her work event. I walked into our bedroom, our former bedroom, and stood there for a moment, seeing it with new eyes. How many times had she texted him from this room? How many times had she lain beside me planning their wedding while I slept, trusting her? I checked her nightstand drawer. Found the usual things. Lip balm, hand lotion, a book she'd been reading. And beneath it all, wrapped in a scarf, a phone I'd never seen before. It was off. Dead battery. I found a charger that fit and plugged it in. Waited. The screen lit up. No password. She'd been that confident I'd never find it. I opened the messages first. Hundreds of texts between her and my father. Photos of them together. Intimate photos. Vacation photos. Photos of a life they'd built in secret while I worked 70-hour weeks to give her the life she said she wanted. Then I found the wedding planning folder. Everything was there. Venue confirmations for St. Catherine's Cathedral. Catering invoices. Florist receipts. Photos of the dress, the one I'd watched her wear tonight. Photos of my father trying on tuxedos. A countdown app on the home screen. Days until the wedding. Days until they could stop hiding. They'd been planning this for 6 months. 6 months of smiling at me over breakfast. 6 months of kissing me goodbye. 6 months of lying in our bed while planning to marry my father. I copied everything to my laptop. Every photo. Every message. Every document. Then I found something else. A folder labeled legal. Inside were scanned documents. Contracts. Agreements. And one that made my blood stop. A prenuptial agreement. Between Amelia and me. I stared at it. We'd talked about a prenup once, years ago, when we first got engaged. My lawyer had suggested it. Amelia had cried and said it meant I didn't trust her. I dropped it immediately, told her she was right. That love was enough. We never signed one. But here it was. Dated 3 years ago. My signature at the bottom. Except that wasn't my signature. It was close. Very close. Someone had studied my handwriting. Practiced it. Forged it perfectly enough that most people wouldn't notice. But I noticed. I pulled up a real document I'd signed. A contract for my business, and compared them. Similar. But not identical. The way I looped the K in Klaus was different. The slant of my letters was off by a few degrees. My father had forged my signature. Had created a prenup I never signed. Had built a legal paper trail that would protect him when this all came out. Had planned every detail of how to leave me with nothing. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a calculated conspiracy. I saved the forged prenup. Added it to the evidence folder. Backed everything up again. Flash drives. Cloud storage. Email accounts with fake names. Multiple copies in multiple locations. Nothing was getting lost. Nothing was getting destroyed. I had everything I needed to ruin them both. But as I sat there at 3 a.m., scrolling through the evidence folder, I saw something that made my blood run cold. An email thread between Amelia and my father. Recent. From 2 weeks ago. The subject line read, "The Volkov matter." Volkov. I didn't recognize the name. I opened the email. Stephen, Volkov wants assurances. He's getting impatient. Amelia, tell him we're on schedule. Klaus doesn't suspect anything. After the wedding, we'll have everything we need. Stephen, and if he does find out before then? Amelia, he won't. But if he does, Volkov has contingency plans. Stephen, I don't want it to come to that. He's still my son. Amelia, then make sure he stays blind. We've come too far to let sentiment ruin this. I read it again. Then again. Volkov. Contingency plans. We've come too far. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about my father wanting my wife or Amelia wanting his money. This was about something else. Something bigger. Someone else was involved. Someone I'd never heard of. Someone who had contingency plans if I found out too soon. Contingency plans for what? I searched Volkov in both Amelia's and my father's emails. Found dozens of references. Business deals. Partnerships. Shipments. Numbers that didn't make sense for real estate. And one phrase that appeared over and over. Once Klaus is eliminated. Not divorced. Not gone. Not out of the picture. Eliminated. My hands started shaking. This wasn't just about betrayal. They were planning something. And I was the obstacle. I sat back from the laptop, my heart hammering. Klaus thought he knew the whole story. Thought this was about his wife and his father and a forbidden affair. He was wrong. This was about something much bigger. Something that involved people he'd never met. Something that had been in motion for longer than he realized. And somewhere out there, someone named Volkov was waiting. Waiting for Klaus to be eliminated. Klaus thought discovering the affair was the worst of it. But hidden in those emails was a truth far more sinister. This wasn't just personal. It was business. And in his father's world, business problems don't get divorced. They get eliminated. Now Klaus had to decide. Confront them with what he knew, or dig deeper into a conspiracy that might get him killed. Either way, time was running out. I closed the laptop. The word eliminated burned in my mind like a brand. But I couldn't afford to panic. Couldn't afford to show my hand. Not yet. Not until I understood exactly what I was dealing with. So I did what any good strategist does when they're outgunned and outnumbered. I disappeared into plain sight. The clock on the wall read 4:37 a.m. Amelia would be home soon. Fresh from her wedding. Fresh from becoming Mrs. Stephen Michaelson. Fresh from lying to my face one more time. I made myself tea. Earl Grey. The same kind she always made for me when I had a rough day. I sat at our kitchen table and waited, my hands perfectly steady, my face perfectly calm. At 6:15 a.m., I heard her key in the lock. She walked in looking radiant. Hair still perfect from the ceremony, though she'd changed into normal clothes. Makeup still flawless. She had that glow people get when they're happy, when they've just married the person they love. She smiled when she saw me. "You're up early," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. She walked over and kissed my cheek. Quick. Casual. Like she'd just come from the grocery store instead of her secret wedding to my father. "Couldn't sleep," I said, taking a sip of tea. "How was the donor meeting?" "Long." She poured herself coffee. "You know how these tech billionaires are. They want to talk for hours about impact metrics and sustainability models." She rolled her eyes. "But we got a 6-figure commitment, so worth it." Every word was a lie. Every gesture was practiced. And I sat there smiling, nodding, playing the part of the trusting husband. "That's amazing," I said. "I'm proud of you." She squeezed my shoulder. "Thanks, babe. I'm exhausted, though. Mind if I grab a quick shower?" "Of course not." I watched her walk away. Watched her disappear into our bathroom. Heard the water start. And I sat there, drinking my tea, feeling absolutely nothing. 2 hours later, she emerged in yoga pants and one of my old t-shirts. The uniform of a woman comfortable in her home, in her marriage, in her lies. "I'm starving," she said. "Did you eat?" "Not yet." "Want me to make something?" "You're sweet, but I can." "I insist." I stood up, walked to the fridge. "You've been working so hard. Let me take care of you." I warmed up leftover pasta, poured her a glass of wine, set it all in front of her at our table, the same table where we'd eaten 1,000 meals together, where we'd talked about our future, our dreams, our life. I sat across from her and watched her eat. She talked about work, about donors, about an upcoming gala she was planning. All lies, probably. Or maybe half-truths twisted into excuses. I couldn't tell anymore. Didn't matter. I asked gentle questions. She answered smoothly. I touched her hand, looked in her eyes. She smiled at me the way she used to, or at least a convincing imitation of it. The performance was flawless on both sides. Over the next few days, I became the perfect husband. Attentive, supportive, unquestioning. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings, asked about her day in the evenings, made dinner, did laundry, played the role so well even I almost believed it. But I also started making small changes. I moved her keys from the hook by the door to the kitchen drawer, watched her search for them, flustered, saying she could have sworn she left them in the usual spot. Maybe you're just tired, I said, handing them to her. You've been working so much. I hid one earring from her favorite pair, the diamond studs my father had probably bought her. She tore apart the bedroom looking for it. I don't understand, she said. They were right here. They'll turn up, I said. Things don't just disappear. I changed the Wi-Fi password one morning, then changed it back before she got home. Just long enough for her to notice. Just long enough to make her wonder. Small things. Insignificant things. But they added up. She started checking her phone more often, looking over her shoulder, asking me if I'd moved things or touched her stuff. Her confidence, that unshakable certainty she'd always had, started to crack. Are you okay? I asked one evening. You seem stressed. I'm fine, she said too quickly. Just a lot going on at work. You can talk to me, I said. You know that, right? I know. She kissed my forehead. I love you. I love you too. The words tasted like ash. I also changed my own behavior in subtle ways. I stopped texting her during the day. Stopped calling to check in. When she asked if everything was okay, I said I was just busy with work. Trying to close a big deal. Needed to focus. Of course, she said. I understand. I gave her total freedom. Didn't ask where she was going or when she'd be back. Smiled when she left. Smiled when she returned. The contrast unnerved her more than interrogation ever could. She was used to me being present, engaged, asking questions because I cared. Now I didn't ask anything, and she didn't know what to do with it. At night, I lay beside her in bed. She'd roll away from me, probably thinking about him, probably wishing she was in his bed instead of mine. And I'd stare at the ceiling in the darkness, thinking about everything she'd done. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment she pretended to love me while planning her future with my father. My calm wasn't weakness. It was calculation. Every lie she told now made me stronger. Every fake smile pushed me closer to the moment I'd stop pretending. Every day I played this role was another day to gather evidence, build my case, plan my next move. She thought I was oblivious. She thought I was the same trusting fool I'd always been. She was wrong. One night, about a week after the wedding, I woke up to use the bathroom. It was 2 a.m. The house was dark and silent. I heard her voice. Soft, muffled, coming from the bathroom down the hall. I moved closer, careful to keep my footsteps silent. The door was cracked open. Light spilled into the hallway. She was on her phone. I need to confirm, she was saying. How far along? Yes, I understand. No, he can't know yet. Not until. My blood went cold. Pregnant. She might be pregnant. Can you do the test without him knowing? Her voice was tight, stressed. I need to know for sure before I make any decisions. Whose baby? Mine? My father's? The question sliced through me like a blade. We'd been intimate, not often lately, but enough. And who knew how long she'd been sleeping with him? Months? A year? If she was pregnant, there was no way to know whose child it was without a test. And she was trying to get that test done in secret. Okay, she said. Tuesday. I'll come in Tuesday. And you won't put it in the system? Good. Thank you. She ended the call. I moved back to our bedroom before she could catch me eavesdropping. Slipped under the covers. Closed my eyes. Forced my breathing to stay even. She came back a minute later. Slid into bed. Rolled away from me like always. I lay there in the darkness, my mind racing. A baby changed everything. If it was mine, she'd have leverage. Could claim I abandoned her and our child. Could paint me as the villain. If it was his. God. If it was his, that meant they'd been planning this even longer than I thought. Meant she'd been trying to get pregnant with my father's child while still married to me. Either way, This was bigger than an affair. Bigger than betrayal. This was about control. About money. About eliminating me from the equation completely. And someone named Volkov was involved. I needed answers. Needed to know who Volkov was. What contingency plans meant. Why my father and my wife had conspired to destroy me. But I needed time. Needed to keep playing this role a little longer. Just a little longer. 3 days later, I was in my home office organizing the evidence files when I heard Amelia's car in the driveway. She was home early. That was unusual. She'd said she had meetings all afternoon. I quickly closed my laptop and stood up, smoothing my expression into something neutral. She walked in, and for the first time in days, she looked nervous. Genuinely nervous. Her hands were shaking. Her face was pale. "Klaus," she said, her voice tight. "We need to talk about something." My heart stopped. Does she know? Did someone tell her I was at the wedding? Did my father figure out I've been investigating? I kept my face perfectly neutral. "Of course," I said. "What is it?" She sat down across from me, wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold. "I just got a call," she said. "From your father." The room went very still. "Your father?" I kept my voice casual. "That's unexpected. What did he want?" She looked at me, her eyes searching my face for something. "He wants to see you. Says it's important. Says he has something he needs to tell you." "About what?" "He wouldn't say." She bit her lip. "Klaus, I think he wants to reconcile. After all these years." I almost laughed. Reconcile. That's what they were calling it now. I paused, letting genuine confusion show on my face. "I don't know what to say. We haven't spoken in years." "Why now?" "I don't know." She reached across and took my hand. "But maybe this is good. Maybe it's time you two work things out." Her hand in mine felt like holding a snake. "Maybe," I said slowly. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should see him," she said. "Hear what he has to say. Life's too short to hold grudges. Life's too short." Coming from the woman who'd just married my father in secret, who might be carrying his child, who was part of a plan to eliminate me. The irony was almost beautiful. "Okay," I said. "I'll call him. Set up a meeting." She smiled. Relieved. "Good. I think this is really good, Klaus. For both of you." She kissed my forehead and left the room. I sat there, my mind racing. Stephen wanted to see me. Wanted to tell me something important. This was it. This was them making their move. Whatever they'd been planning, whatever elimination meant, it was happening now. I opened my laptop, pulled up the evidence folder, made sure everything was backed up, made sure if something happened to me, the truth would still come out. Then I picked up my phone and called my father's private line, the one I'd found in Amelia's hidden phone records. He answered on the second ring. "Klaus." His voice was warm, fatherly, the voice of a man who hadn't just married his son's wife. "I'm glad you called. Amelia said you wanted to see me." "I do. There are things we need to discuss. Things I should have said years ago." "What kind of things?" "Not over the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Say 2 p.m. I looked at the evidence folder on my screen. At the word eliminated in his email. At the name Volkov that kept appearing. This could be a trap. Could be the moment they'd been waiting for. But it could also be my chance to confront him. To get answers. To look him in the eye and let him know I knew everything. "I'll be there," I said. "Good." He paused. "Klaus, I know we haven't had the best relationship, but I want to change that. It's time we talked. Really talked." "I agree," I said. "We have a lot to discuss." I ended the call. Amelia appeared in the doorway. "Well, I'm seeing him tomorrow." She smiled. Genuinely smiled. "That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you both." The game has changed, I thought. Stephen knows something. And whatever he's about to do will force me to make my move sooner than planned. But that was okay. Because I was ready. Let them make their move. I'd already made mine. Klaus was walking into his father's office thinking he'd confront a cheater. What he didn't know was that Stephen had been waiting for this moment. Had been planning it. And the meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. wasn't about reconciliation. It was about elimination. Klaus had 24 hours to prepare for a conversation that could end his life. The only question was, Would he see the trap before it closed? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. The next 24 hours felt like walking through a dream where everything looked normal, but nothing was real. Amelia made breakfast. I ate it. She asked about my day. I answered. We moved through our routines like actors in a play, both of us performing our roles with practiced precision. But now I knew the script, and I was rewriting the ending. That evening, she brought up the dinner. Your father called me again, she said, setting down her wine glass. He really wants to do this. A family dinner. The three of us. He said. She paused, like she was emotional. He said he regrets how things ended between you two. That cutting you off was the biggest mistake of his life. I watched her face, searched for any sign of the woman I'd loved, found only a stranger wearing her skin. That's unexpected, I said carefully. After all these years, people change. She reached across the table, took my hand. Maybe he's finally realized what he lost. Maybe this is your chance to heal that wound. Heal that wound. While she was sleeping with him, while they plotted my elimination, the audacity was almost impressive. What do you think I should do? I asked. I think you should give him a chance. Her eyes were earnest, pleading. Life's too short to hold grudges, Klaus. And who knows? Maybe he really is changed. I nodded slowly, like I was considering it. Maybe you're right. She smiled, squeezed my hand. I'll set it up. Tomorrow night? There's this amazing restaurant he knows. Very private. Sounds perfect. But before I committed fully, I needed to test her. Needed to see how deep the lie went. Hey, I said casually. I found a receipt the other day. From Le Bernardin? The bill was over $2,000. I didn't remember us going there. I watched her face carefully. For just a fraction of a second, barely perceptible, something flickered in her eyes. Panic. Fear. The micro-expression of someone caught off guard. Then it was gone, replaced by her perfect smile. Oh, that donor event I told you about, she said smoothly. Remember? The tech billionaire who wanted to discuss his foundation? He insisted on that restaurant. She laughed. Ridiculous, right? $2,000 for dinner. Her lie was smooth. Practiced. She'd probably told it to herself so many times she believed it. But I'd seen that flicker. That moment of fear. She was good, but not perfect. Right, I said. I forgot. Must be nice having donors with that kind of money. It's exhausting, honestly. She rolled her eyes. But it's for the kids, so it's worth it. For the kids. Of course. The next evening, I put on my best suit. The navy one she'd bought me for my birthday 2 years ago. Back when I still believed her gifts meant something other than guilt. We drove to the restaurant in silence. She seemed nervous, kept checking her phone. Probably texting my father. Or her real father. Or both. The restaurant was exactly what I expected. Private. Exclusive. The kind of place where billionaires made deals and ruined lives over wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. A hostess led us to a VIP room in the back, separate from the main dining area. Soundproofed walls. No windows. Perfect for a trap. Stephen was already there, standing by the window with a drink in his hand. He turned when we entered, and I saw him the way I'd seen him at the wedding, dressed in a $10,000 suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his face radiating the confidence of a man who'd never lost anything that mattered. Klaus. He walked toward me, extended his hand. Thank you for coming. His grip was firm, cold. His eyes assessed me like I was a property he was considering acquiring. Father, I said. Then he turned to Amelia, kissed her cheek. His lips lingered just a fraction too long. His hand on her waist just a little too familiar. I watched. Said nothing. Noted everything. We sat down. Ordered food I wouldn't taste. One I wouldn't drink. Stephen talked about family. About regrets. About how cutting me off had been a tough love approach that maybe went too far. I was trying to make you stronger, he said. But I see now that I just pushed you away. His performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I might have believed him. I want to make amends, he continued. I want us to be a family again. Amelia squeezed my hand under the table. Encouraging. Supportive. playing her role perfectly. I appreciate that, I said carefully. It's been a long time. Too long. He leaned forward. Which is why I have a proposal. I want you to come work for me. Vice President of Development. $500,000 a year to start. Full benefits. Company car. Everything you've worked so hard to build on your own, but with the resources of my empire behind you. I let my eyes widen slightly. Played the part of the son who'd always wanted his father's approval. That's incredibly generous, I said. You're my son, Stephen said. It's time I treated you like one. Amelia beamed. She looked genuinely happy. Like this was what she'd been working toward all along. Maybe it was. Dinner continued. We talked about business, about opportunities, about the future, and all the while, I felt the noose tightening around my neck. After dessert, Stephen stood up. Klaus, walk with me for a moment. There's something I want to discuss. Privately. Amelia nodded encouragingly. Go ahead. I'll settle up here. I followed my father out into the hallway. He led me to a small private room off the main corridor. Closed the door behind us. The mask dropped. I'm going to be direct with you, he said. I know you're struggling financially. Your little consulting firm is barely breaking even. You're drowning in debt. And Amelia. He paused. She deserves better than what you can provide. My blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to help. $2 million. Cash. Tax-free. All you have to do is sign divorce papers and walk away. Let her go. Let her have the life she deserves. The room spun. He wasn't trying to buy my wife. He'd already bought her. This was about making it clean. Making it look like my choice. You want me to divorce my wife? I said slowly. For money. I want you to do what's best for everyone. His voice was calm. Rational. Like he was explaining a simple business transaction. She's not happy, Klaus. You know that. And you can't give her what she needs. But I can. Let her go. Take the money. Start over. It's the kindest thing you can do for her. I stared at him. At this man who'd abandoned me my whole life. Who'd taken everything that mattered. Who stood there asking me to sign away my marriage like it was a failed investment. I need time to think, I managed. Of course. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait. We walked back to the table. Amelia looked up, her face anxious. Everything okay? She asked. Fine, I said. Just business talk. On the drive home, she couldn't contain herself. So, what did he say? About the job. He made an offer, I said carefully. That's amazing. Klaus, this could change everything for us. Your father's company, his resources, we'd never have to worry about money again. What if I say no? I asked, watching her face. Her expression darkened. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to see the real her beneath the mask. Why would you say no? Her voice had an edge to it now. After everything we've been through? After all the struggling? This is our chance. Our chance. Not mine. Ours. Because she'd been working toward this all along. I just need to think about it, I said. She didn't respond. Just stared out the window, her jaw tight. When we got home, I told her I needed to work for a bit. She went to bed without kissing me goodnight. I sat in my car outside our house and pulled out my phone. There was an email waiting. From the private investigator I'd hired weeks ago. Subject: urgent. You need to see this. I opened it. The report was extensive. Financial records. Background checks. Immigration documents. But one section made my hands go numb. Subject name: Amelia Volkov, née Volkova. Birth name: Amelia Maximovna Volkova. Father: Maxim Volkov, Russian national, suspected organized crime connections. Employment history: none. Nonprofit, position fabricated. No record of employment at stated organization. Immigration status: entered U.S. on student visa 2015. Visa expired 2017. Current status: unknown. I read it again. Then again. Amelia Volkov. Not Amelia Laurent, the name she'd given me. Not Amelia, the orphan who'd grown up in foster care with nothing. Amelia Volkov, daughter of a Russian oligarch. Planted in my life like a weapon. The nonprofit job was a cover. The charity events were meetings. The donors were probably her father's associates. Everything was a lie. Every moment we'd shared. Every word she'd spoken. Every time she'd looked me in the eyes and said she loved me. All of it. Planned. Orchestrated. A conspiracy that went back years. I kept reading. Business connection, Maxim Volkov and Stephen Michaelson, partners since 2018. Joint ventures in real estate, import, export, offshore holdings. Combined estimated net worth, $12 billion. Objective assessment, subject, Klaus Michaelson, appears to be obstacle to partnership consolidation. Recommend extreme caution. They needed me gone. Not just divorced. Not just out of the picture. Gone. Because I owned shares in some of my father's companies. Because my name was on documents. Because legally, I was an heir. And Amelia was the solution. Marry me. Gain access. Then marry Stephen. Consolidate everything under one roof. I was never supposed to find out. I scrolled to the final page of the report. And there it was. The last piece. Medical records, obtained via confidential source. Patient, Amelia Volkov. Scheduled procedure, Mercy Hospital, November 12th. Procedure type, termination of pregnancy. Gestational age, 6 weeks. Additional notes. Patient requested paternity testing prior to procedure. DNA samples collected from 2 potential fathers. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. She was pregnant. 6 weeks. And she was planning to terminate. But only after finding out whose child it was. Mine or Stephen's. Because if it was mine, it was a complication. Something that needed to be eliminated like I was supposed to be eliminated. But if it was Stephen's. I looked up at our house. All the lights were on. She was in there, probably texting him. Probably planning their next move. Probably laughing about how naive I'd been. I put my phone away and got out of the car. It was time to stop playing defense. It was time to take everything from them the way they tried to take everything from me. Because Klaus Michaelson, the trusting husband, was dead. And the man who replaced him? He didn't forgive. He burned everything down. Klaus now knows the full scope of the conspiracy. His wife is a Russian operative. His father is a criminal. And somewhere out there, Maxim Volkov is watching, waiting, ready to eliminate anyone who threatens his empire. Klaus has 2 choices, run for his life, or stay and fight a war he can't possibly win. But Klaus isn't running, because he's just realized something they don't know yet. He has evidence that could destroy them all, and he's about to use it. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my car with my phone in my hand, reading and rereading the PI's report. Amelia Volkov, daughter of a Russian oligarch, planted in my life like a virus designed to destroy me from the inside. Every memory felt poisoned now. Every kiss. Every laugh. Every moment I'd believed we were building something real. All of it. A lie. But lies could be weaponized. And I was done being the victim. At 6 a.m., I made a call. Miranda Castellanos, a sharp voice answered. Ms. Castellanos, my name is Klaus Michaelson. I need a lawyer. The best. I was told you're it. I'm expensive. I don't care about cost. I care about winning. There was a pause. Tell me what we're dealing with. Criminal conspiracy. Fraud. Possibly murder. And I need to move fast. Another pause. Longer this time. Come to my office. 9 a.m. Bring everything you have. Miranda Castellanos' office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower in the financial district. She was in her 50s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that could cut through bullshit at 50 paces. I laid it all out. The wedding video. The forged prenup. The PI report revealing Amelia's real identity. The emails mentioning Volkov. The phone records. The hidden accounts. Everything. She watched the wedding video in silence. Read through the documents with a lawyer's cold precision. When she finished, she looked up at me. This is criminal conspiracy, she said. Fraud. Identity theft. Money laundering, probably. And if half of what you're suggesting is true about this Volkov character, possibly worse. I want to go to the authorities. Not yet, I interrupted. Her eyebrows rose. Excuse me. I want them to destroy themselves first. I want to make sure that when this comes out, there's no way they can spin it. No way they can claim it was a misunderstanding or that I'm the scorned husband making things up. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Is there? She smiled slightly. Either way, we'll need more than what you have. We need financial proof. Digital evidence. A clear paper trail that even the best lawyers can't argue away. Then let's build one. Over the next 3 days, I assembled a team. A forensic accountant named David Chun who specialized in tracing offshore money. A cybersecurity expert called Reyes who could crack encrypted files. A second private investigator to tail Maxim Volkov. And a media strategist named Sarah who would help control the narrative when everything went public. It cost me $150,000. Every cent of my business savings. Everything I'd built over the past decade. But it was worth it. David found the irregularities first. Your father's empire is built on sand, he told me, spreading documents across Miranda's conference table. Money laundering through multiple shell companies. Millions in illegal funds flowing through that nonprofit where your wife claimed to work. The nonprofit doesn't exist, does it? Oh, it exists. On paper. But it's never done any actual charity work. It's a front. A way to move money from Volkov's Russian accounts into your father's American properties. And I'm listed as part owner of some of those companies, I said slowly, understanding clicking into place. Exactly. Your name is on documents. Your signature is needed for certain transfers. Legally, you're an heir. If your father goes down, you go down with him. Unless I'm not around anymore. David nodded grimly. The forged prenup was step 1. Getting you to sign divorce papers willingly was step 2. And if that failed, they'd eliminate me. Miranda's expression was dark. We need more. We need proof they were planning to harm you. That's when Reyes came through. He cracked Steven's encrypted email server. Found an entire thread I'd missed on Amelia's hidden phone. Messages between my father and Volkov from 3 weeks ago. Subject, the Klaus problem. I read them with ice spreading through my veins. Volkov, divorce too slow. He's asking questions about the money. Steven, give it 2 more months. If he doesn't sign the papers, we'll reconsider our approach. Volkov, 2 months is too long. Every day he's alive is a risk. Steven, he's still my son. Volkov, then you should have raised him better. We proceed with alternative solution if he refuses. Steven, make it look like accident. Car crash. Home invasion. Something clean. Volkov, clean is my specialty. I read it twice. 3 times. Trying to make the words mean something else. They didn't. My father, my own father, had agreed to have me killed. Jesus Christ, Miranda whispered, reading over my shoulder. We have them, I said. My voice sounded hollow. This is conspiracy to commit murder. This is enough to put them both away for life, she finished. Klaus, we need to go to the police. Now. You're in danger. Not yet. What? I looked up at her. I want them on tape. I want a confession. I want them to say it out loud, on record, so there's no way they can claim those emails were taken out of context or that Volkov was acting alone. That's insane. You're talking about walking into a room with men who want you dead. I'm talking about ending this. My voice was steel. Once and for all. So they can never hurt anyone else. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Maybe both. I called my father that night. Klaus. He sounded surprised. Pleased. Have you made a decision? I have. You're right. About everything. I can't give Amelia the life she deserves. And I don't want to be the reason she's unhappy. There was a pause. Then, I'm proud of you, son. This is the mature choice. Mature. Coming from a man planning to murder me. I'll sign the papers, I said. And accept your offer. The $2 million. I'll start over somewhere else. Smart. Very smart. When can you come to my office? November 10th. Tomorrow. Is that too soon? Tomorrow is perfect. He sounded genuinely happy, like a father proud of his son's wise decision. Come at 2 p.m. We'll handle everything. Okay. And Dad? Yes. Thank you for giving me a way out. That's what fathers do, Klaus. They help their sons make the right choices. I ended the call and stared at my phone. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The meeting that would either expose them or end me. Miranda had already secured a court order for a wire. The judge, shown the evidence of the murder plot, had granted it immediately along with police surveillance authorization. I'd wear the wire into my father's office. Get him to confess. Get it all on tape. Then the police would move in. That was the plan. But plans rarely survive contact with reality. That night, as I was preparing documents in my home office, Amelia appeared in the doorway. She'd been avoiding me since the dinner with Stephen. But now she looked different. Vulnerable. Her eyes were red. Klaus, she said softly. I need to tell you something. My heart stopped. Does she know? What is it? She walked in, sat down across from me, took my hands in hers. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between us. You're what? Pregnant. I took a test this morning. I know the timing isn't great, with everything going on, but... She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. This baby could be a new start for us. A chance to remember why we fell in love. She didn't mention the scheduled termination. Didn't mention the paternity test. Didn't mention anything about whose child it might actually be. This was her backup plan. If Stephen's scheme failed, if I didn't sign the papers, she'd use the baby to keep me hooked. Keep me from leaving. Keep me as insurance. I looked at her crying face. Her performance was flawless, and I felt absolutely nothing. That's amazing news, I said, pulling her into a hug. She sobbed into my shoulder. I was so scared you'd be angry. With the job offer from your father and everything. We'll figure it out, I said. Everything's going to be okay. Liar, I thought. You're a liar, and so am I. The only difference is I know it. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What did you decide? About your father's offer. I'm meeting with him tomorrow. To discuss everything. And I think I'm going to accept. She smiled. Actually smiled. Like this was what she wanted. Like everything was falling into place exactly as planned. That's wonderful. Klaus, this is really wonderful. Our future starts now. She kissed me. I kissed her back. And felt nothing but cold calculation. November 10th, 9 a.m. I sat in my car outside my father's corporate tower. The wire was taped to my chest, hidden under my shirt and jacket. Miranda was 2 blocks away in a surveillance van with police, listening to every word through the feed. My phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. Good luck today, baby. I love you. We're going to be okay. I stared at the message. At those 3 words. I love you. 3 words she'd said 1,000 times. 3 words that meant nothing. I didn't respond. I got out of the car and walked toward the building. The security guard recognized me. Mr. Michaelson, your father is expecting you. Top floor. I nodded and walked to the elevators. The ride up felt like an eternity. 60 floors. Each one bringing me closer to either justice or my own death. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. My father was standing there in the reception area, smiling, wearing another expensive suit, looking like the picture of a successful businessman welcoming his son. Klaus, he said warmly. Come in. But behind him, partially hidden by the doorway to his private office, I saw someone else. A man I'd only seen in photographs from the PI's report. Maxim Volkov. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that did nothing to hide the gun holstered under his jacket. And as I stepped forward, he pulled that gun out, pointed it directly at my chest. My father's smile didn't waver. I'm sorry, son, Stephen said quietly, but you've become a problem we can't afford. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I realized with terrible clarity, I'd walked into a trap thinking I was setting one. Klaus thought he was the hunter. He was wrong. Now he's trapped 60 floors above the city with 2 men who've already decided he needs to die. The wire on his chest is his only hope, but what Klaus doesn't know is that they've been jamming the signal for the last 5 minutes. No one's listening. No one's coming. And time just ran out. Time slowed down. I stared at the gun in Maxim Volkov's hand, at my father's unchanging smile, at the elevator doors closed behind me, trapping me 60 floors above the city with 2 men who'd already decided I needed to die. The wire taped to my chest felt like a lifeline. Miranda was listening. The police were listening. They'd heard everything. They were coming. They had to be coming. I raised my hand slowly. I'm not armed. We know, Volkov said. His English was perfect, barely accented. We checked security footage. You came alone. No backup. No weapon. Very trusting of you. Or very stupid, my father added. Volkov gestured with the gun toward the office. Inside. Closed the door. I walked forward on legs that felt like water. Stepped into my father's private office. All glass and steel and expensive art. The kind of room where empires were built and lives were destroyed. The door closed behind us with a soft click. 3 men in a locked room. 60 floors up. No witnesses. The wire was still transmitting. It had to be. Miranda was hearing this. She was sending help. Any second now. My father walked to his bar, poured 3 glasses of whiskey, handed one to Volkov, held one out to me. Drink, he said. You'll want it for what comes next. I took it. Didn't drink. Just held it, feeling the weight of the crystal glass in my shaking hand. Stephen settled into his leather chair, gestured for me to sit. I did. Volkov stood by the door, gun still pointed at my chest. I'm going to tell you something, Klaus, my father said. Because you're my son, and you deserve the truth before. He trailed off. Before you kill me? I finished. He didn't deny it. Just took a sip of his whiskey and looked at me with something that might have been regret if I didn't know better. Do you know what it's like to build an empire from nothing? He asked. To spend your entire life creating something that matters? And then watch it crumble. I wouldn't know, I said. You never let me be part of it. That's because you were always meant to be the solution, not the problem. He leaned forward. 5 years ago, my empire was failing. The real estate market crashed. My developments were underwater. I was leveraged to the breaking point. I owed Maxim's organization $50 million. Money I didn't have. Volkov smiled. Said nothing. Maxim offered me a way out, Stephen continued. A partnership. His money, my infrastructure. Together, we could build something bigger than either of us could alone. But he wanted insurance. Wanted to make sure I couldn't cut him out once things turned around. So you gave him me, I said. Not gave. Offered. His daughter would marry into the Michaelson family. Would have legal access to accounts, assets, protections. It made sense. And you chose me instead of yourself. You were estranged. Struggling. You'd already rejected the family name. You were the perfect target. He said it like he was explaining a business decision. Which, I suppose, he was. We arranged for Amelia to meet you. The nonprofit job was a cover. The chance encounter was choreographed. Everything was planned. I thought of that first night at the charity dinner. The way she'd laughed. The way she'd given me her number. The way I'd thought I was lucky. For years, I said. 4 years of lying. 4 years of investment, Volkov corrected. My daughter is very good at her job. Which was what, exactly? Marry me and wait for you to kill me. Stephen had the decency to look away. The original plan was simpler. You'd marry her. Tragic accident shortly after. She'd inherit as your widow. Then she'd marry me, combining our assets under one legal entity. Clean. Permanent. But I complicated things, I said, understanding flooding through me. I didn't die easily. You built a business. Became stable. Made it too suspicious if something happened to you right away. My father actually looked impressed. You were always more resilient than I gave you credit for. So you waited. Planned. Forged a prenup. Tried to get me to sign divorce papers willingly. And when that failed, Volkov said, his voice cold, we moved to alternative solutions. He pulled documents from his jacket. Set them on the desk in front of me. Life insurance policy, he said. $5 million payout. Amelia is the beneficiary. You signed for it 3 years ago. Don't remember? That's because you didn't. But your signature is on file. Another forgery. Another piece of their carefully constructed trap. Sign here, Volkov said, sliding a transfer document toward me. Make it official. Make it clean. We'll make your death look natural. Heart attack. Toxin that's untraceable. You'll go peacefully. No pain. And if I don't sign, then we have Messier options. But I think you're smart enough to choose the easy way. I stared at the documents. At my forged signature. At the life they'd constructed for me without my knowledge or consent. You know what's funny? I said. I actually loved her. I thought we were building something real. Love is a luxury, Volkov said. Business is survival. The door opened. I turned, expecting security. Expecting someone to end this. Instead, Amelia walked in. She looked different. Her hair was down. Her makeup was darker. She wore a black dress and heels that cost more than our mortgage. She looked like someone I'd never met. What are you doing here? I asked. She smiled. Not the warm smile I remembered. Something colder. Sharper. Did you really think I'd miss this? She walked past me without a glance. Walked to Volkov. Kissed his cheek. Hello, Papa. Then she turned to my father. Kissed him. Not a polite kiss. Not a friendly kiss. The kind of kiss that made my stomach turn. It's done? She asked Stephen. Almost. She finally looked at me. You made this harder than it needed to be, Klaus. If you'd just signed the papers, taken the money, walked away, none of this would be necessary. What about the baby? I asked. My voice sounded hollow. Our baby. She laughed. Actually laughed. There is no baby. The positive test was fake. The whole thing was theater. Just needed to keep you stable until today. Needed you to feel hopeful so you wouldn't run. Every word was a knife. Every revelation cut deeper. But I couldn't fall apart. Not yet. I touched my chest. Felt the wire beneath my shirt. You know this whole conversation is being recorded, right? I said. Police are listening right now. They'll be here any second. Stephen smiled. Pulled a small black device from his desk drawer. A signal jammer. We've been blocking your wire for the last 10 minutes, he said. No one is listening. No one is coming. You walked in here alone, Klaus. And you're going to die alone. The room felt like it was closing in. The wire was useless. Miranda couldn't hear. The police weren't coming. I was going to die in this office. Unless. I smiled. Stephen's expression flickered. What? I know, I said. Know what? That the wire was a decoy. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Held it up. The screen showed a voice recording app. Running. Streaming. This phone has been live streaming to YouTube since I walked in. I said. Unlisted link. But I sent it to 50 journalists before I came up here. Every word you said is already public. Every confession. Every threat. It's all out there. Stephen's face went white. Volkov lunged for the phone. I dodged, throwing myself sideways. Stephen shouted something. Amelia screamed. Volkov raised the gun. And then the windows exploded. Glass shattered inward in a spray of diamond fragments. Dark figures rappelled through the broken windows on ropes, moving with military precision. Federal agents. Hands up. Drop the weapon. Volkov spun toward them, gun still raised. 3 red laser dots appeared on his chest. Drop it now. He dropped it. Stephen raised his hands. Amelia tried to run for the door. An agent tackled her, forced her to the ground. I backed away, hands up, watching as everything fell apart around them. Miranda rushed in through the main door with a police captain and a dozen officers. She saw me, relief flooding her face. Klaus, are you hurt? I'm fine. We got everything, she said breathlessly. Audio, video, confession. The live stream worked perfectly. They're done. All of them. Stephen was forced to his knees. Handcuffs snapped around his wrists. He looked at me, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. You've destroyed everything, he said. No, I replied. You did that yourself. Volkov was cuffed next. Then Amelia, who fought the whole way, screaming in Russian. As they dragged her past me, she stopped, looked me in the eye. "You think this is over?" she said. Her voice was venomous. "You have no idea how deep this goes. My father has people everywhere. Judges, politicians, police. You just signed your own death warrant, Klaus. They'll find you. And when they do..." An officer pulled her away, but she kept screaming over her shoulder. "You're dead. You hear me? Dead." Then she was gone. The office fell silent except for the sound of Miranda giving instructions to the police captain. Maxim Volkov and Amelia were all arrested, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, money laundering, attempted extortion. Bail was denied for all three. I gave my statement, handed over the evidence, watched as they were led away in handcuffs. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. 1 week later, I sat in a safe house in an undisclosed location. U.S. Marshals stationed outside, armed guards at every entrance. Because Amelia had been right about one thing. Volkov's organization had put a $10 million bounty on my head. Within hours of his arrest, the price went up to $20 million, then $30. I couldn't go home, couldn't return to my business, couldn't live any semblance of a normal life. I'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. Miranda visited on the 7th day, brought news that the trial date had been set. The evidence was overwhelming. All three would spend the rest of their lives in prison. "But there's something else," she said. She handed me a folder. We recovered Amelia's personal laptop, found files she thought she'd deleted. I opened it. Inside were medical records. A pregnancy test, dated 3 months ago. Positive. My heart stopped. DNA paternity test results. Father, Klaus Michaelson, 99.97% probability match. Procedure completion form. Date, November 11th. Status, completed. I stared at the paper. She'd been pregnant. With my child. My son or daughter. And she'd terminated it while planning my death. While smiling at me, I looked up at Miranda. "She killed our baby. Klaus." Her voice was strange. "Keep reading." I turned the page and saw a birth certificate. Name, Klaus Michaelson Jr. Date of birth, November 11th, 2024. Mother, Amelia Volkov. Father, Klaus Michaelson. Wait, not terminated. Born. She had the baby? I whispered. Yesterday, while she was in custody, she went into early labor. They rushed her to the hospital. She gave birth to a healthy boy. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. My son. I had a son. Where is he? Miranda's face went pale. That's the problem. After the birth, before anyone realized what was happening, she gave him up for adoption. Signed papers using a false name. Handed him over to an agency we can't trace. Klaus, your son is out there somewhere. And we don't know where. The room spun. I had a son. A living, breathing child. And Amelia had given him away. Hidden him. Made sure I'd never find him. We're searching, Miranda continued. But the adoption was done through illegal channels. It could take months too. Her phone rang. She answered, her face going from pale to gray. When... A pause. How many dead? Another pause. Oh God. She hung up. Looked at me with terror in her eyes. There's been an attack on the courthouse, she said. Volkov's people. They broke him out during a prisoner transfer. Killed 6 guards. Stephen and Amelia escaped with them. I stood slowly. They're gone. Yes. But Klaus. She was shaking. Before they escaped, Volkov left a message for you. She showed me her phone. A text from an unknown number. The game isn't over. It's just beginning. Your son is with us. If you want him back alive, you'll do exactly what we say. You have 48 hours to decide. Your life for his. We'll be in touch. MV. I read it again. Then again. They had my son. My newborn son. The child I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago. And they were going to use him to get to me. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. I looked at Miranda and said 5 words that would define everything that came next. Tell me everything about Maxim Volkov.
Klaus thought exposing the conspiracy would end his nightmare. He was wrong. Now his father, his wife, and a Russian crime lord are free. His newborn son is missing. And Klaus has 48 hours to make an impossible choice: surrender his life or lose his child forever. But Klaus Michaelson isn't the same man who walked into that cathedral weeks ago. They took everything from him. Now he's going to take everything back, even if it kills him. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So, do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.